Sorry about that. This will be a brief update. I hope everyone's doing okay. Hope everyone was able to enjoy the very excellent weather out there. That was fantastic. So let's be hopeful that was the last of the snow. Thanks for checking in. It's good to see you, my friends. Thank you, Rachel and Bonnie, Pam and Zach. Good to see you. Roy, lots of top fans. Kim, thank you. Hope everyone's doing okay. Well, let's give it 1 second here. Got the old man veteran hat. Penny, good to see you. Melissa, thank you. We do appreciate you guys. Where those glasses go? God is good indeed. Lois, we're praying for you this morning. Jeff, good to see you as well. Artistically mine, howdy, and Rob. Good. All right, we're doing okay here. I'm tuning in. So we had session today. Ran a couple bills. Actually, I had a bill unanimously passed off the floor, Senate Bill 155, that makes a small change to the military community enhancement commission. I think it makes it more effective without spending a cent. So I was thankful for unanimous. And it goes over to the House and hopefully be signed into law in a couple weeks. And other bills we ran today, a bridge naming, always good. They usually honor military members or law enforcement. So those are always outstanding to support. So a couple of those ran. And an act amending Title 75 that enhances the Veterans Trust Fund voluntarily. Does not add any tax. If somebody wants to kick in on their own volition a little bit more money for the Pennsylvania Veterans Fund, they can on their own will. Oh, wow, this thing is still backwards. There we go. Great to see you guys. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for your prayers, especially Shelty Shrangrila. That's a fantastic name. Good. So here's our Senate calendar. That was probably backwards on one of these platforms. The things to key in on and anything that says run on them. Obviously, running the bill. So once again, thankful and honored to have a bill run through the Senate unanimously today. Also introduced legislation to protect. What's the right way to put it? Well, there'll be more. We'll follow up on that in a second. Let's see what else we have here. What a divisive time we live in. It is at times disconcerting and disheartening. I don't know. I think it's important that we're not part of the problem. It's easy for people to sit in judgment of others. This is just an observation. Remember in Matthew chapter 7, Jesus said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged, for the same measure." Okay. And then if you do judge, the same measure that you use against others will be used against you. It's a dangerous trail to be on, casting aspersions on other people. So thankful for a nice letter from the leadership of the Assyrian Church. And it's very nice, huh? Nice letter. So remember last month, actually 2 weeks ago, seems like a month ago, honored the Assyrian. Let me just get right to this here. The Assyrian Church of the East and Diocese of Western USA and Eastern and California. So they're thankful for my 25 January words. Okay, it was last month. It was a month ago. Honoring the Assyrian fast of Jonah, or rogation of the Ninevites. It's a nice letter. I really appreciate people taking the time to say thanks. I mean, I don't take that for granted. Thank you for each of you. Got a nice framed scripture from Linda Nicole, and a nice name. Nice letter as well from her. And Glenn Mills, thank you for that. Thoughtful. Thank you, especially for your prayers. I thought I brought some additional cards to thank people for. Alice at Elwood City. Used to go past Elwood City anytime I was visiting Rabbi. She lived, of course, in Mercer County, and she and her dad would pick me up from the airport in Pittsburgh, and we'd go past Elwood City. But you know, really nice Christmas card. I know Christmas is some months past, but I hadn't thought about. I set aside some of the nice. Kind of get it in there close enough so you can see that. So, Alice, Danny, Gabe, thank you for that. And nice encouragement in here. That's fantastic. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to say thank you. So, on this day in 1991 was G Day, Ground Day, G Day. There's the map. I put the big explosion in the middle there, that yellow thing in the center. That's, of course, the Battle of 73rd Easting happened. Let me move this over here. I know the light is. But those are the Allied American and coalition units in which way we attacked. So I was with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment. We led the main attack. It's this circular patch here. There it is. Anyway, everything's reversed when I do this. I'm sorry. 2nd Cavalry Regiment. It's that circular patch right here. So we led the main attack for the first 82 first 82. Oh my goodness. So after that miraculous intervention by God of turning the wind around, blowing at our backs, meaning Saddam's forces couldn't use chemical weapons against us, we were bounding forward, and my regiment was making so much. We were going so quickly that our 7th Corps commander, General Franks, kept on stopping us. So we'd advance for about 2 hours and then stop, wait for the rest of the armored units behind us to catch up. And then we'd lunge forward again. And we had a classic cavalry mission, screening forward in the front and trying to find the enemy. And then, of course, set the conditions for the forces behind us. And we had the 1st Armored Division with us, and the 3rd Armored Division, and the 1st British Armored Division, the Desert Rats, and 1st Infantry, Big Red 1. And of course, towards the end of the ground war, 1st Cavalry Division did a feint to drag the Iraqis towards the Kuwaiti border and up Wadi al-Batin, but then came in and started moving behind us as part of 7th Corps. And of course, there was a brigade from Rocket Amar, 3rd Infantry Division, also out of Germany with us. And 1st and 2nd Marine Divisions were there. 1st and 2nd Marine Divisions, 2 divisions. And a brigade of 2nd Armored Division, also out of northern Germany, was supporting the Marines. And we had Arab forces comprised of Syrians, a division of Syrians and Egyptians, and then about a division-sized element of Saudis and other Gulf states, Persian Gulf states. And of course, the 18th Airborne Corps out to the west, mostly out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. See that cool dragon patch? That's for 18th Airborne Corps. Yeah, there you go. And they had a division from the French Army and the 82nd Airborne 101st Air Assault and the famed 24th Infantry Division, and screening on our flank was a 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. We don't have any more armored cavalry regiments these days, sadly. We had 3 back then. the 2nd, 3rd, and 11th. The 11th was going to come in after the war and deploy to Kuwait to make sure the Iraqis didn't try anything else as their forces downsized there. But across the entire theater, the ground war began. 82nd, 101st launched forward with the French to protect our left flank, and then all the rest of the forces we advanced forward. And I'll tell more stories on the anniversary as we get there, but I do remember the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, comforting me. And in these days here, we could use a little bit of that comfort as well. Thank you, V. Sherman. Thank you. I'd ask people to continue to pray. So, let's see. Baghdad Bob, yes. And we also had Baghdad Betty as well. And I had some of their propaganda on a tape that I recorded myself. And when we lived in Alabama, I tossed all those cassette tapes in a shed outside where it was just so hot, and I tossed them. And I didn't even think about it. That's a piece of history that I tossed. It's a shame. Spent a lot of time in the desert there listening to their crazy 70s music with American propaganda. It's like, really terrible. It was kind of like, you Americans will attack us. And unfortunately, no, and many of you will die. Unfortunately, it's kind of like an afterthought. It was kind of entertaining. And of course, we had our own armed forces network. Christmas music was played, of course, in December of 1990, but the compromise with General Schwarzkopf and was no lyrics. It was all musical Christmas music, but it brought a lot of joy nonetheless, that 2 months before. But anyway, yep, 27 years old when all that happened. And it was an amazing thing. But, God is good. And thank you, Pennsylvania, for praying, because you prayed that many of us came back. And otherwise, probably would not have, because of the things that we encountered. Really feel discombobulated this evening. So, okay. This is the battery of artillery here, but look at the puddles of water. See that? And see how dark the sand is in the picture above? There you go. That's 11 years of rain in that desert in 2 weeks. And it made the soil hard so we could navigate. And this picture here is part of my squadron, aviation squadron, up top. Dang it. See all the puddles in where my fingers are? Sorry, my friends. Trying to do so both streams can see that. So I was in a OH-58 Kiowa coming in, and that's my unit there with all the Blackhawks and Cobras you see on the ground. But see all the puddles of water, more importantly. 11 years worth of rain in 2 weeks. When I came back, as we were screaming on the Euphrates River after it was over, the first or second week of March, I don't even remember. They came back to this area on a Chinook, and that dry desert area was covered with fields of wheat, beautiful green fields because of all that rain. I could not believe it. It was amazing. The desert literally bloomed in front of us. So that was a blessing. All these things, people prayed, and we didn't even know what to pray for and what to ask, and people had no idea what we were doing. And we're there, and it's going to be this way instead of praying in faith. But God, heard your prayers and translated that into specific action. So thank you for your prayers. And prayer still does, make a difference. It still does work. Was it this day? I got to crack open my notebook. It's just been, now I'm getting old. I can't remember. I used to know this stuff like the back of my hand. Here's one of our helicopters that went down. Right here. Both of the men walked away. Actually, we saw them stand. These are pictures I took, by the way. Not every picture in this photo album is mine, but 90% of it. So I'm inside a Black Hawk, and we see two people, these two figures here waving at us. We think they're Iraqis trying to surrender, and we go over and find that's one of our helicopters. Literally from my squadron, 4th Squadron, 2nd Cavalry Regiment. I was my call sign was Red Catcher 2. Good Cold War name, legacy name from the Cold War. We just had come out of the Cold War, months before. Anyway, and so many instances of our people surviving certain death situations that had a profound effect on many people in my unit, even people, who were professed agnostics or atheists. I mean, it's just really hard to deny when you see, back here, in the world, as we would call it. It's easy to be very philosophical and theoretical, but when you're face to face with this kind of stuff every day, it does make you think. The last thing I'll leave you on here, last war story. You see this right here? So, dark 30. One of our, I must have like 4 or 5 in the morning. One of our, it had to be around 5. One of our Cobras took off. You see the picture above? That's right. We were still using the Cobras in the cavalry. Some units had the Apache. We did not. I think First Armored Division already had it. But anyway, I think it was about 100 feet AGL above ground level, and I could hear its engine sputtering nearby. And then I heard it stall in the darkness, and then it was fully combat loaded. And then it smashed to the ground and exploded and erupted in flames. You can see the missiles shooting off. There's missiles on there, and the rounds, the main guns are punching out. And I'm outside praying for those guys that God would spare their lives. But I'm thinking there is no way anyone can walk away from that. There is no ejection seats in a helicopter, obviously. The rotor's above. You don't come out of it until it's on the ground. And so I'm praying, but I'm like, you're kind of like, I don't even know, I'm trying to say this the right way. What is the point? Because there's no way those two men can walk away from that. The pilot and the gunner. And they both did. And I asked the warrant officer, the pilot of that helicopter, and I'm like, Chief, how did you get out of that thing? They both were fine. Because I have no idea, Doug. 1 minute I'm in a helicopter, crashing to the ground. Next minute we're both standing outside of it. We come to our senses and run. I mean, what a miracle. And it was just an amazing time. And so I have around here, a black Bible that I always kept in my cargo pouch in my battle dress uniform or in my DCUs, the desert camouflage, the chocolate chips, whatever we call them. And anytime I had a couple minutes downtime, I'd crack it open and study it and read it. And my one of my commanders used to make fun of me. And one time I was late to one of his meetings out in the desert there, and during the air campaign, he's like, "You see Mastery out of there?" And I'm like, "Great, he's going to embarrass me in front of my peers again. Fantastic." I'm a young man. I'm 27 years old, relatively young. And I'm like, "Oh, great." And he's like making fun of me. And you see him with his Bible there? I'm like, "Oh boy." And he's like, "We all need to start carrying Bibles around like Mastery." He was so touched by that story about that helicopter crashing to the ground and both of his men surviving, and there was no human explanation on why they could walk away from that. And they did. And I saw it all. I snapped those pictures. I suppose these days I could try to enhance it, but obviously that was my 35 millimeter Olympia manually focused. But it was so dark, obviously it's delayed, so you could see the shots going off. Probably about a quarter mile from me. The main gun rounds popping off, occasionally a tow missile shooting off into the darkness. Anyway, so it was an incredible time. And so it was, we had over 20 churches, Rebbe had, as she mentioned, over 20 churches praying specifically for the 500 men in my squadron. And our entire regiment was over 2,000, about 2,500 men altogether. And all 500 of us came back from my squadron, and it was not for want of reasons for us to lose people. So I'm thankful for many of you out there that prayed for our troops. If you were around in 1991, and you prayed, and I'm an answer to those prayers, as so many others are. But as you heard on the floor of the Senate today, though, war always comes with casualties. And I read off the all 29 names of all 29 Pennsylvanians that did not come home, whether they lost their lives from an accident, non-combat related event, or in combat. And of course, the big day of commemoration. And I gave my notes to the clerk so she could have all the names. So I can't read them off here now. And of course, on the 26th of February, Saddam Hussein was popping off Scud missiles. Those are surface-to-surface, Soviet-designed surface-to-surface missiles, and he was popping them off against the Saudis and against Israel, trying to drag Israel into the war. The elder Bush administration did magnificent work keeping Israel from entering the war. We figured that would backfire on our Arab allies who'd be hesitant to be involved in a war on the same side as Israel. So Saddam Hussein's popping off Scuds, and we, of course, there was Patriot missiles to try to counter those. And anyway, one of them got through in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, same port I came in on December 7th, by the way. Well, actually, I landed in Al Jubail, but our equipment came in Dhahran a few weeks later. But anyway, and the unit from Greensburg, Pennsylvania, so mostly men and women from Western PA, and 13 of our Pennsylvanians were killed in that one attack. And a lot of others from other states died, sadly and tragically. So read off every name, and these are the kind of things that should bring us together, but that we remember and honor, not forget 30 years on, and they're still missed by their loved ones, by their family members. So I thank you guys for all that you're doing. Stay strong, stay blessed, and stay encouraged. I'm going to round us out here. Sorry that I ran late. And Michelle Smith is right. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yep. Sue, it's good to see you from Burke. So many good friends. And we value your friendship and especially your prayer cover. Thank you once again, my friends. And I'm going to go ahead and saddle up to see you hopefully tomorrow. And I hope everyone is doing well out there. You're not alone. We stand with you. And better days are always ahead. And we're trusting God for that. Thank you, my friends. Bill, good to see you. And Bonnie, I can read it on YouTube, but not on the Facebook. Stacy, top fan. Julie, top fan. Mary, top fan. Wow. Yeah, Mary, final thoughts here. Mark, good to see you too. Desert Storm's not taught. It's really a darn shame, and it's not because it was, something I was involved in. It was the result of 20-some years of reflection, study, and evaluation, and lessons learned from Vietnam by the United States Army, United States Air Force. And for those of us, who were in our 20s in 1990 and 91 and older, remember there was a dark cloud over the United States because of Vietnam. We lacked confidence, and there was a lot of self-doubt. And so under General Starry and Colonel Holder and many others, the Army and Air Force came up. Colonel Warden came up with the air-land battle concept and on how not to repeat the mistakes of the 60s and 70s again. And it was achieved in Desert Storm with a lot of prayer. It was achieved, but then all those lessons were unlearned in our own lifetime. And it's really hard. Look, and obviously I'm focusing a lot on Desert Storm veterans because this is our anniversary, but we honor all the veterans, especially our dear Vietnam veteran friends, our brothers and sisters who came back to a nation that was not grateful or thankful. But we go through an incremental war with lack of a strategy, lack of achievable end, and we're never going to do that again. We learned that in Desert Storm, all the less hard-learned lessons of Vietnam were applied, and it was decisive. And then 2003 in the terrible decision to invade Iraq and have a regime change and all that went with that, and the suffering that was going to go as a result. Went with half the amount of troops we had in Desert Storm to occupy a massive, giant country the size of Iraq. In Desert Storm, it was to liberate Kuwait, so the ground forces operated in the Kuwaiti theater of operations, which was, aside from the special forces missions out in the desert looking for scuds, it was small little corner of southeastern Iraq and Kuwait. You know, you have almost 700,000 troops and then 250,000 allied and coalition troops. So, you know, pushing 1 million ground troops just for that small area, those are lessons learned from Vietnam. And then to go in and occupy an entire country with, you know, a quarter of the force package that we had in effect for liberating Kuwait. And to watch us unlearn the hard-learned lessons and forget that, especially by a Secretary of Defense who lived through all that and should have known better. It's really heartbreaking to see how quickly we forget. So let's look to history and remember. And so Desert Storm has a lot of utility in it, and I think there's value to studying that. I had hoped to someday to put together a book on it, but that's not going to happen for some time, sadly. But anyway, thank you, friends, for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing y'all, God willing, tomorrow.